We continue to be concerned about the role that any firms, including those in the PRC, are playing in Russia's military procurement. I stress that companies, including those in the PRC, must not provide material support for Russia's war, and that they will face significant consequences if they do.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen wrapping up 4 days of talks in China with a warning against any moves to bolster Russia's military capacity. Our Chief North Asia correspondent Stephen Engle joins us now for more. So there were modestly set expectations from this visit. How would you assess, I guess, whether it was a successful trip?
Yeah, success is a difficult one to essentially measure in this case. Janet Yellen obviously had an agenda to bring up issues about overcapacity in green industries and the threat of dumping by the Chinese on global markets and the distortions. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But sort of wrapping up this 4-day trip to Beijing, talking about China's cozy relationship with Moscow as it relates to supporting or whether it is supporting the war in Ukraine. And again, Janet Yellen did say that most of the increased trade that we've seen, obviously, over the last couple of years between China and Russia has been, quote unquote, non-problematic. Her threat, if you want to call it that, or her warning to Beijing is that they're going to be on increased watch for any potential aiding of the war machine, if you will, in the Ukraine, and warning banks, any banks that facilitate significant transactions that channel military or dual-use goods to Russia's defense industrial base, expose themselves to the risk of U.S. sanctions. And again, the ultimate weapon of the United States would be cutting off Beijing, like it has done to Russia, access to U.S. dollars. But that's an ultimate threat down the road, obviously. And again, there's been not necessarily any exposed proof that Beijing is supporting the war in Ukraine. And China's role or explanation has always been that they are neutral. But there's no doubt that trade between Moscow and Beijing has increased considerably over the last couple of years. But the timing is interesting as well for her to raise these comments, because it came on the same day that Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in Beijing for talks.
Let's get to Janet Yellen's press conference. She was saying there that the global economy might be adversely impacted by these ramped-up factory exports from China. What was Beijing's response to that?
Well, first, I'll take a step back, and obviously this is a push by Xi Jinping with a slowing and sputtering Chinese economy, the emphasis on new industrial forces, and in particular the new three, that's EVs, batteries, and solar panels and the like. And again, the concern that Janet Yellen raised in her trip to Beijing was about the overcapacity and the investment, if you want to call it, subsidies into these industries, and that excess capacity has to go somewhere. If the domestic economy is not picking up, it goes abroad in the form of cheaper exports, and that distorts global trade. That is, in a nutshell, the argument. Xinhua news agency, well, let me back up for the first of all. So far, Beijing has been playing nice and listening to these complaints across the table from Janet Yellen, and has not, according to U.S. officials, has not blasted her across the table as a rebuttal. But again, we have heard from Xinhua news agency in a commentary Friday, they blasted Yellen's quote-unquote xenophobic narrative of Chinese excess capacity. And also the Vice Finance Minister, Liao Min, pushed back, saying that the current production capacity is far from meeting market demand. This is an issue, obviously, in an election year in the United States, is not going to go away.